And we need to start as small businesses looking at each photo shoot that you do as a marketing campaign. So the photos are attached to that campaign, and you can start thinking more, what's the type of backdrop? What's the kind of clothing? What props do we need to convey the message of this campaign?
Welcome to Go Get Great, the podcast for aspiring entrepreneurs and ambitious small business owners. I'm your host, Brittany, owner of Brittany Miller Socials and mother of 3. Go Get Great is all about helping you make life and business work together. You'll learn about the fumbles that helped get me and my guests to where we are today so you don't have to make them. So come join the journey with Go Get Great. I am so excited to be diving into another fantastic guest episode on the Go Get Great podcast. And I have the little company with me today. I hope you don't mind. So Victoria May is my guest for today, and she is a passionate photographer, and she is an expert in her craft, let me tell you. With over 12 years experience behind the camera, she specializes in creating authentic, emotion-driven content that captures the essence of her clients' brands. Victoria's mission is to help businesses stand out and succeed by visually telling their unique stories. Her approach is collaborative, fun, and really ensures that every photo session is comfortable and enjoyable. And she is here today to talk about all things brand photography, which is a topic that I've never had on the podcast before. And it's something that I really feel like most business owners don't know that they need in their business. Because one of the things we're going to talk about, aside from how you can help prep for a brand session, is that brand photography is its own thing. It is very different. It is not just taking a nice, pretty photo on your Instagram or on your iPhone for Instagram. It is not just hiring a random photographer and booking a studio space and going in and just seeing what you get out of it. It is a curated experience that is meant to drive results in your business for a specific topic and focus. So without further ado, let's dive into our conversation today. All right. Well,
So
good
fun.
morning. Welcome to the Go Get Great podcast. How are you doing today?
So good. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Me too, but I know we know each other, but can you introduce yourself for our audience before we get started today? I'm so excited to talk about brand photography because this is a topic we haven't discussed on the podcast yet, and it is so fundamental for business owners.
Absolutely. So my name is Victoria May Photography, and I have been shooting for over 12 years. I studied marketing and photography in university, and it is my absolute privilege and honor to get to work with so many amazing brands, especially women in business, helping them stand out from the crowd.
That's so exciting. And brand photography really does make a huge impact, but we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. I feel like we should get started just kind of with a general understanding of what brand photography is, because as someone who works in the realm of social media, who has had clients who send me brand photos, that there's a very big difference between general photography and brand photography.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So one of the things, and we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier when you and I were chatting before the podcast started, but one of the things is that people often think, okay, first of all, I now have a business. I need to get some photos so that I can market it. And that's the end of the story. And there's so much more than that. You want more than just a bunch of pretty pictures. You genuinely need to be curating a tool that goes along with your marketing. So brand photography isn't just a bunch of pretty pictures, especially if you're building a personal brand potentially of just you. You want photos that are really curated, speaking to exactly who your clients are and speaking to their needs. So your photos are just an extension of your marketing. It should line up with your copy. It should line up with your brand colors and the vibe and all of everything that you're creating in your brand. Your photos should align with that as well. So it's super important to be really thoughtful in your brand photos versus just regular photos because of that marketing purpose. So down to like what color you painted your nails, that all matters. And when we look at big businesses and what they're doing in their marketing, we see they have entire marketing teams dedicated to creating these campaigns. And we need to start as small businesses looking at each photo shoot that you do as a marketing campaign. So the photos are attached to that campaign, and you can start thinking more, what's the type of backdrop? What's the kind of clothing? What props do we need to convey the message of this campaign?
Mm-hmm. And it's so true. And I've done brand shoots before. We're going to put
Yeah.
that in air quotes because at the time I thought I was doing brand shoots, but in retrospect, I was not. And I would just kind of go, I'd show up with some outfits and, I thought I was kind of doing okay. I would bring my brand colors and kind of put that in some of my outfits. It doesn't always fit with the backdrop. And then you get home and you have all these nice photos and you're so excited, but then you go to use them and you're like, okay, but I don't have a photo for this for my website. It doesn't convey
Exactly.
this message. And there's so much planning that needs to go into the process. And nobody talks about that.
Absolutely. It blows my mind. So that's like one of the things that I'm really trying hard to work on in my messaging and the things that I'm talking about with my clients is how important it is in the planning process. We actually go through a whole comprehensive planning meeting and some back and forth with me and the client to plan every detail out because it's so important. You've probably heard a million times people say a picture says 1,000 words. So let's use all of those 1,000 words to say the exact message that you need. So it's so important to plan it out, to think almost like a quarter ahead. What am I going to be marketing in the next quarter? Is there a quiz that I'm launching? Is there a freebie funnel that I'm launching? Is there am I redoing my website? Am I doing a fun challenge? Do I have a new product or service that I'm wanting to talk about more? Like, what are your marketing goals for the quarter? And then you start to work with that. Okay, what kind of messages do we need to properly market that? And then build out the photos to match. So honestly, it's so much more than just the hour, 2 hours, however long photo shoot. It's actually all the preemptive planning, that creative direction that needs to be done. And so when you're looking for a brand photographer, there's so many talented photographers out there that are going to get beautiful photos of you that you are, I promise, going to love because you look so great. But then when you look at them from the marketing standpoint and you start going, oh, shoot, I have nothing to talk about this specific service, or I have nothing that fits for this container on my website, or whatever the case may be, you're missing out and you've invested all this time and money into, you're likely investing in the photographer, the outfits, potentially hair and makeup, getting your nails done. All of that is an investment into your marketing. So you might as well go the extra few steps to make sure that you are being really strategic with that investment.
And I really like that. And I kind of mentioned this before and you kind of touched on it too. There's a lot that goes into the planning process. Usually what I see business owners do is they take all the photos and then they try and fit it into a content plan, and it doesn't work. It's like the content plan has to come first, and then from the content plan you make a list of all of the pictures and video clips that you need for your website, for your marketing plan, and then you do the shoot after. And everyone's doing it in reverse, and that's why there's so much frustration. And then there's a big discrepancy too, because then you're missing pictures, so then you try and take them on your own, and as much as iPhone pictures look nice, there's a very big difference between the pictures that I take on my iPhone and the pictures Grayson edits from his camera. So then it looks messy and different in your feed because you're trying to fill in the gaps. And I was like, we
absolutely. Absolutely. I love how you put that. Yeah, we're so many photographers and so many small businesses, they're doing it in reverse. They're getting the photos. They go, okay, I need to market my business. Step one, photos. And it's like, actually, whoa, Nelly, step one, what do you want to say? Who do you want to build in your brand? Like, who are you trying to talk to? How do we create images that do that? How do we create images that serve you? Start with that instead of it. And then the other part of it too is what happens when you start with photos first instead of planning your marketing strategy first, is that you end up with all these beautiful photos that, you'll get excited. You'll use them for probably a week. You might update a few, like your headshot on different things, and you might do like a couple new photos on your website, and then you never use the photos again. But if you're choosing to work the opposite way, where you've got very strategic marketing campaign pre-planned, where you're like, okay, these are the things that I'm going to be talking about this next quarter. These are the services I want to be advertising. And so I need photos specifically for this service. Then oh my goodness, you're going to get so much use about these photos because you can then use them again and again and again and again because you knew that you were going to get photos that are specifically for the message that you're wanting to get across. And you and I have talked about this before, but it takes 14 times for someone to hear the same exact message before they take action. So, you know, say the same thing, use the same photo 14 times. And going back to those, what are the big businesses doing? They have entire teams that are dedicated to creating this content, creating these like campaigns, and they run the campaigns and they use the same photos and you see the same photos everywhere. But then for us as small businesses, we go, I need to do more work than these entire teams because I can only use the photo one time because they might have seen it already. They're going to be bored of it. I promise you they're not. Everyone is so inundated with content and marketing all the time. No one is bored if you're marketing.
It's so true. And you know what? Now that you say it that way, it really kind of puts it in perspective for me because you don't watch a commercial on TV once for a product and it's a different commercial each time. You watched the same commercial, like every commercial break for 6 months.
Absolutely. Or even like think about like from a photo perspective, like you'll see it on their socials, on their website, in magazines, on billboards, like Times Square, maybe. Like you'll see that photo anywhere that they can put a print photo or a digital photo. You will see that photo and you won't just see it once. They'll have it in their stories. They'll have it on their posts. They'll make it into a reel. They'll like they are utilizing their content so efficiently. And as small businesses, we go, oh, no, I can only use the photo one time. But also I only have a couple photos that work for what I actually want to say because I didn't plan it properly. And it's like, guys, we have less resources. Why are we trying to do more? Why don't we start looking, what are they doing? What are they doing well? And start copying some of it because they're doing it way smarter than we are.
They pay big teams big money to reuse the same image and we're paying ourselves pennies to like do it 100 times over. It's like, no thanks. So aside from like strategy prep, which there's no way we could cover in a photo session or in a podcast conversation because every business is different. How do you actually get ready for the photo shoot? What does it look like from that perspective in terms of like wardrobe and like location, set, all of that stuff?
Absolutely. So a lot of that does fall into the planning. Once we have a good idea of what your marketing campaigns are and the vibe and your brand overall, because you don't want the brand to change marketing campaign to marketing campaign. You still want that to be throughout. But once we have all that established, then you're going to like, here's the thing, guys, it's in the details. It's always in the details. I am such a proponent of this. I think so often we get so caught up in the big picture that we forget it's the tiny things that people pick up on. So it's even like, you know, make sure that you get your nails done before your photo shoot, even if you're not a nail girly, like just like get them like cleaned up, get like a nice neutral color painted on it. That's a-okay. There is nothing wrong with that. But make sure that they're nice and clean because undone nails in our society sends a message, unfortunately. And even like, okay, how do you want your hair done? Should you book a hair and makeup artist? And honestly, I always recommend it because it takes so much stress off of you the day of, especially where it's a big investment. So just do yourself a favor, book someone that does hair and makeup because then it's done. You don't have to think about it. You're not freaking out because you messed up your wing liner and now it's like all the way up, you know, like it's just like, let's keep it easy on ourselves, make that extra investment. Outfits, you're going to want to choose stuff that convey the message of your brand. So if your brand is a little edgier, make sure that you're getting outfits that are a little edgy, but always try to like incorporate little like tidbits of like your brand colors as well. That's always a really great way to further push that message forward. I know you mentioned that you do that even in your pretty brand photos. Without the strategy, most people know, okay, I want to include brand colors. It doesn't have to be your exact brand colors. It can also be complementary colors. So I'm just going to use blue and orange because they're the first complementary colors that came to my brain. But blue and orange, complementary colors. You might have blue in your brand. Could be cool to incorporate some orange if you have a fun, loving brand in your outfit. Just to like spice it up, but make that blue really stand out. So that's just something that you could explore.
Okay.
Or if you've got like more of an edgier brand, yeah, like dive into the colors that are going to incorporate that, but only have like, let's say your brand colors are bright blue. Maybe your earrings have that like touch of bright blue. It does not need to be head to toe. I'm in my brand colors. So definitely go with that, finding outfits that work for it. And then in terms of like where the shoot is, if you're working with a good marketing minded photographer in that prep planning, in that back and forth, likely your photographer has sourced and found a studio that really works for the message you're wanting to convey. We have so many studios in Ontario. We're so blessed to have them, and they all have different vibes. I love Mint Studios, especially just because they have so many to choose from all in the one spot. So you can even get like a couple vibes. So if you have two marketing campaigns, you kind of want to bang out all in one, but they both fit the same vibe. It's kind of like a good like life hack. Or Preto Lofts is also a good one. Preto Lofts, studio wise, they've got 3 studios at that location. So you have 3 different options for like which vibe you want. But my favorite part of Preto Loft, which I only recently discovered, is it is directly above Fitzroy Rentals. Fitzroy Rentals is a amazing life hack. So if you are someone that does not want to invest in the new outfits, because let's be honest, it can add up. Like even if you're just going for like a couple tops from Dynamite or Aritzia or whatever, it like all of a sudden you spent like $1,000 on some new things, which is great because you can wear them in the future and it's a business write-off. But if you're like, I don't want to do quite as much, you can rent these outfits from Fitzroy and you can literally go in, do a try on, figure out which outfits you want to rent. They buy all like up-to-date season in style fashion pieces that normally would cost thousands and thousands of dollars to purchase a one piece. So if you want to have that standout piece, you can get from there, which is super cool. And then you pick it up, you go upstairs, you do your shoot, you bring it back down. You don't have to come back in for another like delivery day, which is such a fun life hack for photo shoots is the Fitzroy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Where's that studio located?
So both Mint Studios and Preto Loft are right downtown Toronto. So you do have to brave the downtown Toronto life, but I promise worth it.
Okay, that's good to know. And then in terms of props, so you say that the photographer usually helps you choose the location.
Yeah.
Props are usually on the business owner to bring.
Yeah. So typically when I'm doing it, in that planning, we do talk through your props because it's so important to make sure that your props convey your message. So I'm going to use a recent example from one of my shoots. So I worked with a real estate agent. I love working with real estate agents. They're so fun, but there's so many. So getting to the root of how to get them to stand out is like a extra stretch of my brain. And I love it. Like it just challenges me in such a cool way. So this particular real estate agent, super girly and bubbly, but also like drives a pickup truck and does construction. Like she's like both ends. I love it. The juxtaposition is so fun. But she brings fresh florals to every single one of her like open houses and like staging days. So like you have fresh flowers arrangements done in your home, which is like just like top notch. I'm like, girl, this is something to talk about. So we made sure that we incorporated those fresh flowers. So I even sourced, which is crazy because I take it to the next level, but I even like found some of the actual flowers that I was like, okay, can you get your florist to order these specific flowers because they would align well with your brand and your brand colors, even the vibe of the flowers. And she was like, I would never have thought of that, but you're so right. And then the florist was like, oh my gosh, she's so right. So I was like, yeah, I was. But we talked through the props as well. It is the responsibility of the client to pay for the studio and pay for the props. But my recommendation, always chat it through with your photographer. They're going to have ideas. They're going to have like ideas that probably push you out of your comfort zone, but it's worth it. It is worth it. Take their advice. Every time that I've worked with someone who invested in the props that we talked about and suggested, they loved their photos a million times more because the props so aligned with their brand and with the message we were trying to portray.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So much good information to have too, because a lot of times it's like an afterthought, or people show up without, even like basics, like a laptop and a cell phone. And like, I'm one of those people that likes to pay attention to some of the details, but I don't remember all of them. But like, I bought a brand colored phone case for my phone.
I love this for you.
Because my phone is my business. Actually, at one time I had one that actually had my business logo on it, but it faded. So I don't use that one anymore. But like, to me, that's important. I was like, I want to show my branding in my business. And like, I don't want some like black phone case when, black is not one of my brand colors. So it's like all of those little details.
It's the little details in every single thing. And sometimes, like you just mentioned, the props have their own props.
Yep.
So, like the phone has its phone case, the flowers have a vase, like all of this is so strategically thought out. And again, when we look at what the big businesses are doing in their campaigns, they are being that specific and that thoughtful. And there's a reason. We want to make sure that every single message that can be conveyed from the photo is exactly in line with your brand, which can feel super overwhelming, which is why you find a really great photographer that has that marketing background, that brings the marketing to the table. That's what you want to go in with. That's what you want to invest in, and not just a bunch of pretty photos.
Absolutely. So how do you know if your business is ready for a brand shoot?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So great thought. Your business is ready for a brand shoot, or ready for a brand shoot, if you have no marketing content or photos to match what you're talking about in your business right now. Also, if you decide, like I did recently, to cut your hair or color it a different color, you want to make sure that people are recognizing you. So that's a huge one. Those are good reasons. But honestly, anytime that you have a new marketing campaign that you want to start talking about, or a new service that you want to launch, or a sale, that's a time to think about it. I think so often we think it's a one and done. I'm going to get one set of photos and that's it forever. And it's good to have some of those generic photos. I'm not going to lie. Like, I try to include a couple in every session, because it's great to have those photos that even when you've moved on and you are now offering bigger packages or a different campaign or whatever, you still have a couple photos that you can pull on from previous sessions, because it's nice to be able to reuse that investment. But I would say, main thing, if you have a marketing campaign or a service that you have no content or photos that align with, it's time to get a brand shoot.
And that makes a lot of sense. In my mind, I'm going, you're calling me out here.
I don't mean to.
No, it's okay. But I think it's the things that we need to hear, because you're so right. Every business owner thinks, well, I've already done that, and I either work with what I've got, or I kind of like don't need to do it again. And it is a huge investment, which is why that planning piece is so important, because you don't want to go into it and then, a month or two later realize that you're missing all of these images that you need, so that you have to then go and do another one, because it is a lot of work and time, and a lot of cost as well.
Absolutely. I think a good rule of thumb is kind of aim for a brand shoot. I mean, definitely at least once a year. But if you can do once a quarter, like if you can work that into your marketing budget to do a brand shoot every quarter, you're going to be doing yourselves a lot of favors, because then you can literally plan quarterly for, okay, what sales do I have coming up? What product launches do I have coming up? What services am I wanting to offer? Is there like a new resource that I want to share with the world? Like, whatever it is, you can think through it ahead of time and make sure that you have content that goes with it so strategically. It's going to exponentially help your business.
And I think truthfully too, like some people would be like, well, maybe I can just do it like once or twice a year. And you could, but the problem is planning that far in advance, so much changes as a small business owner, because we have the ability to be flexible and adapt. And we do. I was like, I need to have a studio. I need to own a studio and have a photographer like on retainer, aka Grayson. Grayson's my retainer photographer.
Yeah,
exactly. I need a studio space, because every other week I'm doing something different in my business. Like we were talking, I've got 4 major projects on the go right now, and I just kind of worked on 2 over the summer. And I was like, I
Absolutely.
have no content for any of these things. And like, come next week, I'll probably add something else to the plate that I'll need to talk about and have no pictures for. So
Yeah.
I think once a quarter is kind of the sweet spot for most entrepreneurs. Most of them are not as crazy with ideas as me. So that sounds like
Yeah,
a
that's
good
fair. That's
number.
fair. I mean, honestly, just make sure that you have brand photos to start. I think
Mhm.
that's super important. But that you are also using your brand photos.
Mhm.
I think the other thing, not just how often or like how strategic, but the other thing that I think a lot of small business owners get hung up with is they go, okay, I got my brand photos done, ticked, I've done marketing. It's like,
Mhm.
well, Nelly, no one's seen the photos.
That's so true.
Have you
Uh,
used the photos to talk about what you want to talk about? Like,
mhm.
you got to use them. Yeah.
So we've talked about how to get ready. Hopefully by the end of the photo shoot, you've got all the images you need. And like you were just
Mhm.
saying, using them is really important. And I
Mhm.
see a lot of this, and I mean, it's not the worst idea in the world, but I don't think it's the proper use of brand photos. But people get so excited and then they'll get their photos and then they create a carousel post and they share like 15 of them in a carousel post and go like, look at all my new brand photos. And then you never see them again. So how do we not do
Yep.
that? What is better?
Well, I think it goes back to, and I think everything circles back to if you plan properly for your content, if you plan properly for your marketing, if you plan properly for the campaigns you want to run,
Mhm.
you won't be using your photos that way. You're going to go and you're going to look at those photos. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, my marketing for the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever, is going to serve me so well. The point of these photos is to make you money. If they're not making you money, they're not worth their time. So I think having that plan going into it, yeah, sure, absolutely. If you are super excited that you just got these brand photos, share them in your stories, make a carousel post, especially if you have a personal brand. People buy into that. They're really excited for you. But do not reuse them. The whole point of them was to use them for a marketing campaign. And I think if you go into the shoot knowing that that's what they were for, you will actually hold yourself accountable to using them.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
And you have a wonderful freebie that I have downloaded, and that was what
I
encouraged me to
do.
have you on the podcast. So, can you tell people a little bit about that and then how they can get it because they need it?
Absolutely. So my freebie is a guide, one photo, 30 ways on how to use it and how I challenged myself to do the same thing.
Mhm.
And so it's a super fun freebie. I think you're going to link it in the show notes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So head over to the link in the show notes and you can go download, just pop your email in and you'll be able to get access to that download. It's just my gift to you guys for being amazing listeners.
Mhm.
We're so excited to have you here, but also excited to empower you on how to use the photos. And what inspired me with this one specifically was that education that's missing for us small business owners
Mhm.
on how important it is to use that one photo again and again and again. Because as we said, those big businesses are doing it, but also, it does take someone 14 times to see the same message. So I want to empower you and put those tools in your hands so that you actually go out and use those photos to make you money.
Mhm. So even if you're listening to this episode and you're like, okay, well, a new photo shoot's not in the budget for me right now, or I'm not in a place where I'm ready for it because I don't know what's coming up for me in the next, 4 to 6 months, then that's okay. You still need this resource. Go and get it
Absolutely.
because it'll tell you how you can use some of your existing photos better and in different ways. So leverage what you've already got and then work on getting more later. But
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So one other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on today too is we didn't really talk about choosing the right images because when you get a big gallery back from a photographer, you're like, oh my God, I love all of them. How am I supposed to choose? So
Yeah.
how do we actually choose? What advice do you have us for that?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's definitely a lot of things. Again, and I think I'm like hammering this one in, but if you've got that marketing plan in
Mhm.
mind, your photos should hypothetically be speaking towards that marketing goal.
Mhm.
So make a list for yourself of all the things that you are wanting to talk about in the next little while, and
Mhm.
make sure that you're choosing a variety of photos. So often I've seen people go and choose basically the exact same photo, like it's the same pose, the same expression, just a different outfit and a different backdrop. Like
Mhm.
that's when it's like, okay, guys, like you're not marketing yourselves well. You're just using a photo that you feel looks pretty. It's that's for your personal Instagram. That's
Mhm.
not for your business Instagram. So I recommend to always like make sure that you have that list of, okay, where are the places that I said I wanted to use photos for? What do I want to use those photos for? And make sure that I am choosing photos that talk on each of those standpoints. So again, I'm going to use the realtor just because it's super easy. But realtors, some of the major talking points, they want to talk to you about the fact that they've sold a house. They want to talk to you about the upcoming house that they're about to list. They're wanting to talk to you about their open houses that they're running. They want to talk to you about, you know, their experience with their clients, what that looks like, maybe what their listing presentations look like, those kind of things. Make sure that when you're choosing your photos as a realtor, that you choose a photo that allows you to talk about the fact that you just sold a house, that allows you to talk about an open house, that allows you to talk about the fact that you have a listing presentation. Whatever it is that you want to talk about, make sure that you have photos that match and that you didn't just end up choosing 25 photos of you in a sold sign because you liked how you looked best in them. To be honest, most people don't know and are not thinking about how you look, and they're more thinking about how the feeling that you're giving off, the emotions, the experience. That's what they're looking at. They're not looking at, oh, she should have had someone make her arm look skinnier. Like that's not the message that they're going to be getting from it. So make sure that you're looking more from a marketing standpoint and not getting hung up on those little details.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense too. And you know what? Sometimes we had a conversation about this too after I downloaded your freebie, and I definitely didn't use one photo 30 ways, but I did go back and look through some of my brand photos and went, okay, what can I reuse for where I'm at in my business right now? And I started sharing some of those, and it was really interesting to see you comment on them. And you're like, this to me feels like the most authentic picture of you. And it was just kind of one that I like randomly put up. It was not one of my like top brand photos. So everyone has a different perception of like what your brand represents too. So you can like to think about it that way. And one of the things that I like to do, because I am too biased about things like that, I want to make sure I look good. So I'll run them by Grayson or like a friend, and I'll be like, hey, can you look at these and pick out the ones that you think feel most like me? Because I am biased for that. So
Well, absolutely. And if you have a social media manager, that's a great opportunity to utilize their giftings where you go, hey, this is the gallery. Do you want to have a look through and see, like, based on the marketing plan that we have coming up, let me know which of these photos are going to serve you best. Utilize them. They know exactly which ones they're going to need. They're going to be like, this one, done. Like it's no brainer. I've had a ton of clients that do that where they actually hand off the choosing process to their social media manager because it's just easier and they know that it's going to always align with what they're trying to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. And your social media manager would love you because you're literally giving them the photos that they need to do their job well. And I think that that's where I struggled the most when I was offering social media management as a service, because the clients that I were working with were not in the position where they had done the process this way. So then I'm trying to create content and I don't have the images that I need. So it's not translating to their audience, and then they're not seeing the sales from it. And then they're getting upset about the results of it. And I was like, well, I'm doing the best with what I have, but I don't have what I need.
Exactly. So you almost need to think of your photographer not just as a one-time purchase, but as an extension of your team for that season that you guys are working together. And it also pays to use, like if you've got a marketing-minded photographer, to reuse that photographer because they are going to understand your business. They're going to understand your brand. They're going to understand the types of things, and they're going to understand your ideal client a little bit better than a one-off that you've never worked with before.
And truthfully too, it's great to kind of build that relationship, because then when you're in the studio with them, I feel like you end up getting more accomplished because you're not like recovering the basics of, you know, like how to pose and like what you need for your business and all of those things. So do you have any tips for helping you choose a photographer that's going to get the best results for you in your business? Obviously, I think everyone should work with you, but you obviously have a geographic radius that not all of our listeners are going to fall into.
Absolutely. So if you're unable to work with me, I guess I'll give you some. No, I'm totally kidding. But genuinely, a few things to look for. So treat your photographer like an extension of your marketing team. So you want to go through the process. Don't just hire the first person. Don't just hire the social or like from social media because you found them and you love their work and blah, blah, blah. Make sure that it is the right fit for you. Make sure that you are looking for a photographer that their editing style, this is huge, that their editing style aligns with your brand. So I'm really bright, airy, lots of colors. Like if you want fun, bubbly, or if you want, I mean, I also do a lot with like edgier stuff, but bringing that color in. If you want some of that life in it, that's what you're looking for. But a lot of brands also want something that's like a little bit darker, moodier, that kind of thing. Make sure that you find a photographer that aligns with that. So that's step one. Find your list of photographers. Don't just find one though. Do your research, do your due diligence. You can also have multiple consultations. You can have a consultation with more than one photographer. Ask them to put together a proposal for you based on what you've expressed that you need, and see what they say. See if that feels like it aligns. Obviously, you know your budget that you're working within, but make sure that they are coming at it not just from a, hey, I take really pretty photos, $500 and $500 for an hour, and you get all the photos. That's probably a really good sign that they are not a good fit. Because if they're like, you just get all the photos, that means that they're just going to be shooting a crazy ton of photos, hand them over to you, and they've put no true thought into your brand. You want a photographer that's highlighted that you're going to get a consultation and planning meeting, that you are going to be able to really get strategic with them on marketing. Like make sure that marketing is something that they talk about. Because if they don't understand the marketing perspective, they will never be able to deliver the images that speak to your marketing goals. So those would be my big things to look for, is the editing style, and that marketing background, and that they're going to actually be planning with you and not just planning pretty photos. Like here's a studio, here's a makeup artist, have fun, but hey, let's get strategic about your marketing goals together.
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense too. And like good call too, because I feel like a lot of people go out and they're like, well, I don't want to have to choose 25 out of, 50 or 100 photos. I'll just go with a photographer that's going to give me all of them, and then I don't have to choose, then I have more. But you're right. Then you're not getting the strategy piece of it, because the photographer is not going to spend the extra time to kind of do that. So that,
Exactly. Again, your photographer just needs to be an extension of your marketing team, and your marketing team might just be you, and that's fine. You get a temporary partner in your marketing who's going to talk through your marketing, understand your marketing, and help point out some of your blind spots in your marketing too, which is so valuable.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like you were saying too, if you have a social media manager, get them in the conversation too, because that's absolutely really helpful. So speaking of the conversation, one last question before we wrap up for today. How do you open the dialogue with your photographer and kind of share the information that you're looking for to make it easier for them to kind of come up with that? Like, and I'm sure each photographer has a different process, but like, is it mood boards? Is it like sending them Instagram posts of other people that they like? Like, how do you kind of get that information across for them?
Absolutely. So I get this information from a ton of different ways. And honestly, I find that sometimes people are not as good at using words to describe what they mean and what they want. So that's why I use a million different ways to gather this information. And my clients might be like, oh my gosh, she's another questionnaire, another this, another that. But it's because I'm trying to get a very full, comprehensive understanding. You've been working in your business 365. I'm just coming in. So my goal is to get up to speed as quick as possible. So I always start, my inquiry form is quite lengthy. Most people are like, no, don't do that. Just name, email, then we'll chat. I want a lengthy one because I want to know that even on that first consultation call, I'm coming in empowered to understand you better. Once you've filled out that inquiry form and booked a consultation call with me, surprise, there's another questionnaire in your inbox with even more questions. It seems like a lot, but it's so that I can show up to that call with as much information. And then in that call, then I'm asking you more questions that weren't even in it, or diving in deeper onto those questions that I need a little more clarification. It's asking things about, like, if you could describe your brand in 3 words, what would it be? Like, it's fun questions like that are a little bit easier, but it does help when I put it all together like a puzzle to understand where you are. And then we create a mood board. So I always, and a lot of brand photographers will create a mood board for you, and kind of give you some like examples of poses or vibes that they want to like capture. And I think that's so important because you want to make sure that after all of those words that we're actually on the same page and that we didn't envision two different things. It's like how the English language has like bear, and it can be like an empty cupboard is bear, but like bear, there is a bear, like an actual like grizzly bear coming at you. It's kind of like that. Like it's the same word, but two different understandings and two different meanings. And you want to make sure that you actually are understanding each other. So having the visuals to go along with all of it is really, really helpful.
And you're not the only service professional that does that too, which is a great thing. It's like I've worked with, well, my branding designer too, and kind of copywriters have similar questions. So the more people you work with, honestly, it's like a clarity project for yourself as a business owner to actually sit down and get it all out there. But when I went through the process of doing my branding, what I went in wanting was nowhere near what we came out with. And I like what we came out with better. And one of the biggest things for me was the mood board and seeing it in picture form, how it didn't visually represent my business the way that I wanted it to. And that was kind of why we ended up pivoting when I did my rebrand.
Yeah, which is perfect. That's the whole point, is to make sure that we are speaking to the brand that you're creating and creating that consistency so that there's not that like as you said earlier, some photos are like iPhone and they're just kind of like, and then other photos are like a professional photo and there's just so much consistency, and sometimes they're moody and sometimes they're bright and airy. You do want to have that consistency throughout your entire brand. Photos, copy, web, everything needs to kind of be one cohesive piece.
Oh, for sure. And just one thing that I wanted to mention too, you said this earlier, but like editing style is huge. I've worked with a client too who had two different photographers at two different times come in, and they shot the same location, but they had different editing styles. And then she went to use them on her social media and she's like, this doesn't work. They don't fit because they looked totally different. Like one was very like sepia and one was very like clean and crisp and clear. And I was like, yeah, you can't use those together. Like,
you got to pick a one.
Yeah. Because it speaks so different. So you really have to be careful about that, which I think again speaks to why finding and investing in one photographer so that you can continue reusing. Because if you do like this style now and a different style later, even for a different campaign, then you can't bring those old photos back into your current Instagram feed because it looks funny.
Absolutely. And you want to make sure too, like it is okay to jump ship on your photographer if they're not serving you from a marketing standpoint. So absolutely. But once you've got a photographer that's serving you from the marketing standpoint, think of them as like, again, that extension of your team. Keep with them, build that relationship, because it is only going to get better the more you work together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think that this was so helpful, and I really hope that everyone listening took some information away that they can go and start planning their marketing strategy and then get some fun new photos to help them in that direction. So how do people find you aside from the show notes, but where do you hang out?
Absolutely. So I am on Instagram. That's my main place, my main boo. So you can find me on Instagram at Victoria May, and it's spelled M-A-E, photo. Just photo. So at Victoria May photo. And I'm all over there. You can find me on my website, victoriamay.ca. And I also like cameo sometimes on Pinterest and LinkedIn and Threads. So Threads I've kind of been loving lately, but we'll see how that goes.
But definitely follow her on Instagram because she shares a lot of great advice for helping you get ready for your photo shoots, which is fabulous. And then since you're a photographer, and I'm hoping people will want to work with you because you're great, what's your geographic coverage area? How far would you travel to meet?
Absolutely. So I pretty much can travel anywhere with a travel fee. So that's just something to note. I have clients that like I will travel across the country for. So literally there is geographic radiuses that go beyond just where I am. But the bulk of my clients are the Collingwood area and the GTA and Burlington, Oakville. Like that's kind of like where the majority of my clients kind of live in this season.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And for everyone listening, we will see you next week on the Go Get Great podcast.
Thanks so much. We'll chat soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Go Get Great. I hope you found some useful tips and tricks that can help you make life and business work together. If what I said resonates with you, please share it on social media, and don't forget to tag at Brittany Miller Socials so that I can celebrate you for taking those first steps towards achieving greatness. Remember, success doesn't happen overnight. It takes dedication, hard work, and a lot of spirit. So don't be afraid to dream big and go after what you want. Keep striving for greatness. You get closer with every step forward, no matter how small they may seem. Until next time, go get great.